Okay, so two questions. Well, actually, one's more of a comment. I think that it's very significant to note that this came about 50 years after the legalization of the church, because you see, like, if you go back and you read what happened when the church was finally legalized as the state religion, you see that a lot of people joined the church for political means, for political gain, and that's when the church became very, very polluted, if you will, with mixing of Christianity with paganism. And so I think that's very significant, because that really is what I think is taking place here. And I think going back, it was, you said it was like Lactantius. I might be wrong on that, but who identified this as paganism, and said that that's what the Romans did. So
Yes, that was Lactantius, and
yeah,
Pisidius in the late fourth century. That was Lactantius before Nicaea, saying burning candles is a pagan thing. We don't do that. And it was
right,
Vigilante said that the relic veneration he was seeing was actually secretly importing pagan practices into the church. But what
right,
happened in 312 was there was an edict of persecution that was to kill Christians, and that was lifted in 313, and that was uh, that's just when Christianity became tolerated. It didn't actually become. It's not until the latter part of the fourth century that you actually start seeing the emperors enforcing it as the religion of the state, and it doesn't officially become the religion of the state until about 382
okay,
AD. So that's when it became the state religion. And but my point in highlighting Father William Saunders is that he says, yeah, after 312 AD and it became legalized, they started actually going through the tombs and getting their bones. Well, no, they didn't actually. That didn't start happening until the first recorded case was 354. And what's interesting is that the emperors started doing it, and then the church followed suit. And I'm sorry, the Roman emperors is simply not where we get our practices and our form of worship.
yeah. Well, and then the question that I had was, I guess they believe that these relics have certain powers. Would that be correct? To So it's not just that they're venerating them and kissing them and bowing down to them, but they actually believe that these relics have powers. So I suppose, that maybe if you touch the relic of a dead person or kiss it, that you might be healed, in the same way that the woman was healed when she touched Jesus's garment. Um, is that an accurate thing to say, that they still believe that?
Oh yes, yes. In fact, that's what the when I was reading earlier from the Catholic um, from the Council of Trent, that yeah, it's wrong to deny, according to them, it's wrong to deny that you visit the saints in order to receive some benefit from them, visit the relics to receive some benefit from them. So they look at the woman touching the hem of the garment, people touching Paul's handkerchief, or the dead man being revived by the bones of Elisha, and they say, "See relics," and it's proof that we should venerate relics. But what's missing? Yeah, I'll grant in the scriptures. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what the scriptures say, is that people were healed by Paul's handkerchief, and the man was revived by touching Elijah's bones. None of that brings us to a point where we're supposed to dig up dead people.
Right, and so
You just
for
don't get to digging up dead people
yeah,
from that.
well, and so it's a sin. Um, they would believe that this is a sin if you don't accept this, or if you don't do this, right? Did it? I'm trying to look up because I thought you'd mentioned something about it being an unpardonable sin. Was that correct, or did I just misunderstand?
I'm sorry, I missed the
Well,
word there. What
um,
was the question?
wi- I thought I had heard you say something about it being an unpardonable sin if you
Um,
don't accept this, or if you reject this, or
well, I
um,
don't know that they would say it's unpardonable. I just say that it's a sin, and the church
okay.
condemns them. So
Oh, he condemns them. Okay, yes,
yeah.
that's the word that caught my attention. So what does that mean? Like, because I if Roman Catholics are listening to this, or even if somebody's on the fence, I want to point that out. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to get to. Oftentimes we hear Roman Catholics when we put their feet to the fire and when we show them this stuff, they'll back off and they'll say, well, I don't really believe in that. I don't really, I don't really accept that part of it. And so I wanted to go back to that and just clarify the church does condemn you for rejecting this. Is that an
That's
accurate thing?
Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, that's exactly what the Council of Trent was saying, is that
Right.
it's not just saying that you ought to visit the bodies of the holy martyrs and to venerate them, but if you deny that you should venerate them with the purpose of getting their aid, then you are wholly condemned.
Right.
WHOLLY, you are wholly to be condemned. And the
Right.
church has already long since condemned you and now condemns you. So, as people say, well, I don't do the relic thing, it's like, okay, you're not Catholic anymore.
Right. Right.
So the church,
And yeah, and I really want to capitalize on that. So if you're a Roman Catholic, or if you are somebody who knows Roman Catholics, and you want to flippantly dismiss this and say, well, I don't do that, just know that under the system which you are currently in, you would be condemned by that system. And so my encouragement to all who are currently held captive by that system, I would say come out of it. Be saved by faith, through faith alone, by grace alone, in Christ alone. Because the church, so the ultimatum is this: either you're fully on board with this, and as we've already, as Brother Tim showed, it's a novelty of the fourth century, of the late fourth century. It has no apostolic tradition. Uh, this it's not something that the early saints, the actual saints, the true church took part in. It's not something that they did. It's not something that we should do. So I really want to capitalize on that, because your church condemns you if you reject this, and we're basically making a case that you should reject it. So, Brother Tim, I want to thank you for coming on today. I think this is going to be an excellent episode, and we are laying the groundwork for eschatology. And if our listeners have caught on, we keep pointing back to something took place in the fourth century, in the latter part of the fourth century. There was a change that occurred in the latter part of the fourth century, and so I hope that that entices some people to continue listening to Semper Reformanda Radio, because we are going to be tackling some other issues with Tim Kauffman regarding Roman Catholicism and the novelties of the late fourth century, and then we are going to pick up a series on eschatology and talk about where all of this fits into an eschatological framework. So, Tim, before we go, is there anything else that you would want to add or say?
no, just there were, just so people know, that there were people who rejected this practice. There were people that rejected the veneration of the cross. There were people that rejected the veneration of relics. There were people that rejected the in partu virginity of Mary, as we talked about in our previous series. There are people that rejected her immaculate, people that rejected her sinlessness. And and there are people that rejected priestly celibacy. So we can talk about priestly celibacy sometime, and when that originated. And what we find consistently is that we're showing that all these new novelties, I guess that's redundant to say that all these novelties originated in the latter part of the fourth century. But Roman Catholics will say, well, where was the outcry? There should have been, the true church should have stood up. The church should have rejected this. And what we find is that, sure enough, you find some very faithful people saying something's wrong with these novelties that are erupting around every corner. and they're calling them novelties, and they're calling them inventions, and they're calling them importing pagan practices into the church. So yes, sure enough, there were people who said, sorry, but you're going to have to show from the scriptures, and we're just not seeing it. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, all right. With that, we will go ahead and end today's episode. I want to remind everybody that you can reach us at semper.reformanda.radio@gmail.com. And we look forward to hearing from our listeners. And I hope everybody has a blessed week. If you're listening to this and you have a friend who's a Roman Catholic, listen to this and consider how you might reach out to them, because our desire is to reach Roman Catholics with the truth, with the gospel. So that's our reason for doing this, and we just thank you for joining us. God bless, and we'll see you next week.